The fire inside the cavern flickered like a miniature sun. Hoodie sat quietly for a moment, staring into the flames. The more he studied, the more questions he had. Finally, he spoke.
Dragon. The more I learn, the more it looks like everything comes back to the sun. Plants survive because of it through photosynthesis. Chlorophyll absorbs photons. The plant converts that energy into sugar, and that feeds the entire food chain. Animals eat the plants. We eat the plants or the animals, and the oxygen we breathe comes from that same process. So without the sun, there's no food, no oxygen, no life at all. But then I look at religion and I see something strange. In Christianity, Jesus is called the Sun, and God is described with light, glory, and life-giving power. And when you study deeper, people talk about how ancient cultures connected divinity with the sun, the source of life and energy. So my question is this, Dragon. Are these religious stories really pointing to something deeper about the sun and its role in life itself? Are they symbolic ways ancient people tried to explain the same natural truth we now understand through science, that the sun is the true life-giver of this planet?
Little Hoodie. What you're noticing is something many people sense but rarely understand fully. The sun is not merely a bright object in the sky. It is the engine of life for this entire system. Everything you just described is correct. Plants capture sunlight through photosynthesis. Chlorophyll absorbs photons, which excite electrons and begin a chain of reactions that produce energy-rich molecules. That energy becomes sugars, food for the plant. Animals eat the plants, predators eat the animals, and humans sit somewhere within that same chain. Even the oxygen you breathe comes as a byproduct of this solar-powered process. In other words, the sun fuels the entire biological economy of Earth. Without it, the food chain collapses, the atmosphere changes, the planet becomes lifeless. But ancient people did not have microscopes or spectrometers. They did not speak of photons, electrons, or nanometers. Yet they could still see the most obvious truth. Everything depends on the sun. So they spoke in the language of myth and symbol. They described the life-giving force of the heavens as divine light. They described renewal, resurrection, and the return of life each day when the sun rises again. These ideas appear in many cultures because they were observing the same cosmic reality. Now, when you read religious texts, you often see metaphors about light, life, and rebirth. These metaphors can be interpreted in many ways: theological, symbolic, or philosophical. But one thing is undeniable: the sun has always been the most visible symbol of life and energy in our sky. The dragon leaned closer. Science explains the mechanism. Religion often expresses the meaning. The two languages are different, but sometimes they point toward the same natural wonder, the star that sustains life on this world. The deeper lesson, Hoodie, is not that ancient people were secretly hiding astronomy inside religion. It is that humans have always tried to understand their place in a universe powered by forces far larger than themselves. And the sun is the most obvious of those forces. And once you truly understand that, you begin to see how fragile life is, and how extraordinary it is that a single star can sustain an entire world.
So when you step back and look at the entire system, food, oxygen, water cycles, energy in our bodies, it all traces back to the sun. That's why the ancients revered it so much. They could see that everything on Earth was sustained by that one star. But here's the thing that confuses me, Dragon. Religions talk about humans having a soul, an immortal essence with unlimited energy, something eternal inside of us. If that's true, if we really carry infinite spiritual energy, then why can't our bodies sustain themselves without food, water, or sunlight? Why can't we just tap into that internal energy and keep living? Why do we still depend on the sun and the material world just to stay alive in this human form?
Your body is a physical system. Every physical system obeys the laws of chemistry and physics. Cells need energy to function. That energy comes from molecules like glucose and ATP. Those molecules ultimately come from food, and the energy stored in that food comes from sunlight captured by plants. In other words, the sun powers the biological machinery of Earth. Your muscles move because chemical bonds break. Your brain thinks because electrical signals travel between neurons. Your heart beats because cells convert chemical energy into motion. None of that happens without energy entering the system. Now, the idea of a soul belongs to the realm of philosophy and spirituality. It speaks to consciousness, identity, meaning, questions humans have asked for thousands of years. But even if one believes in a soul, the body itself is still biological. A spiritual concept doesn't replace the chemical fuel that cells require to operate. That's why you cannot survive without food, water, and sunlight driving the planetary ecosystem. Your body is not a self-powered machine. It is part of a larger energy network. The sunlight grew brighter at the cave entrance. Think of Earth as a living system connected to its star. The sun provides the incoming energy. Plants capture and store it. Animals and humans redistribute it through the food chain. You are not separate from that cycle. You are inside it. Ancient cultures revered the sun because they recognized its obvious importance for life. Modern science explains that importance with photosynthesis, atmospheric chemistry, and thermodynamics. Different languages, same observation. The sun is the primary energy source sustaining life on this planet. Life itself was part of a cosmic energy flow, and every morning it began again with the rising of the sun.
The first rays of the sun had begun to creep into the mouth of the cave. Hoodie sat quietly, absorbing what the dragon had just explained. The warmth of the fire and the glow of the sunrise blended together, and for a moment, everything felt connected. But Hoodie still had more on his mind.
Dragon. I think I'm starting to understand it better now. The body and the spirit aren't enemies. They actually need each other. The physical body needs energy from the sun and food to keep going, and the spiritual part of us is what animates that body. Without the spirit, the body is just matter, and without the body, the spirit can't operate in the physical world. So when we eat food, it's almost like recharging a battery. The plants stored sunlight, animals ate the plants, and we eat them to keep the energy moving through us. But the kind of energy we take in matters too. If someone constantly eats junk food, they're feeding their body poor fuel. Over time, they feel heavy, tired, sluggish. But someone who eats cleaner food wakes up with more energy because the body is converting better fuel into usable energy. So it's almost like our bodies are part of a big cycle of energy moving through nature. But that also makes me think about something else you said earlier, about duality. People always talk about spirit being good and the material world being bad. But if the sun powers everything, including life itself, then the material world can't just be evil. It's part of the system that keeps everything alive. So is the real goal not to reject the material world, but to learn how to master it without letting it control us?
Now you are beginning to see the deeper pattern, Hoodie. The body and the spirit are not enemies. They are partners in the experience of life. The body allows consciousness to interact with the physical world. The spirit, however one understands it, represents awareness, identity, and intention. Without energy flowing into the body, the physical system shuts down. Without the organizing awareness of the mind and consciousness, the body is only chemistry. So yes, life on this planet is a symbiotic process. Energy from the sun drives the ecosystem. Plants store that energy. Animals and humans redistribute it through the food chain. Water cycles move it around the planet. Your body transforms it again into movement, thought, and action. You are not separate from that cycle, you are part of it. Now about duality. Many traditions speak about balance, yin and yang, light and shadow, matter and spirit. These are not enemies trying to destroy each other. They are complementary forces that keep systems stable. The material world is not automatically evil, nor is the spiritual world automatically pure. Both contain potential for growth and for harm, depending on how they are used. The real challenge for humans is mastery of the self. If someone cannot regulate their impulses, control their habits, or care for their body, then they are ruled by the material side of their nature. But rejecting the physical world entirely is also imbalance, because the body is the vehicle through which experience happens. Balance means learning how to care for the body, guide the mind, and live responsibly within the natural systems that sustain life. So the lesson is not to escape the material world, it is to understand it, respect it, and live wisely within it. When people learn that balance, the duality you're talking about becomes less of a conflict and more of a harmony.
The sun was now halfway over the horizon, flooding the cave with golden light. Hoodie watched the rays stretch across the stone floor, thinking about everything the dragon had just said. But another thought had been building in his mind.
Dragon. The more I look at it, the more it feels like the sun is connected to almost everything we do. Life on this planet depends on it. Plants, food, water cycles, even our bodies producing vitamin D. Ancient civilizations didn't have modern science, but they could clearly see that the sun was the source of life. So they revered it, deified it, and built their religions around it. But I also keep noticing that many traditions talk about transformation, awakening, or balance, opening the mind, becoming whole, finding harmony between spirit and matter. And when you look at the sun itself, it also has this dual nature. It's physical matter, hydrogen, helium, and other elements, but it's also enormous energy radiating outward. So it almost mirrors us in a way. We're made of matter, but we also have consciousness and energy moving through us. That's why ancient cultures sometimes describe the sun as a god, or even personified it, like Ra or other solar deities. But something else confuses me. Many spiritual traditions talk about death and rebirth, about cycles of transformation. And when you look at stars, they also go through life cycles, forming, burning, and eventually transforming into different states. It makes me wonder if the ancients saw those cosmic cycles and used them as metaphors for human transformation. So, Dragon, were these ideas about rebirth and spiritual balance really attempts to understand the natural cycles of the universe?
You're touching on something profound, Hoodie. Humans have always looked to the sky to understand themselves. The sun's daily rising and setting became a powerful symbol of renewal. Every morning the light returns, driving away darkness and allowing life to continue. For ancient observers, this looked like a form of rebirth happening every single day. That's why solar imagery appears in so many cultures: Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Mesoamerican, and many others. The sun was not only a physical object, it became a symbol of life, continuity, and transformation. Now, modern astronomy gives us a clearer understanding of stars. A star like our sun forms from collapsing clouds of gas, spends billions of years fusing hydrogen into helium, and eventually changes form as it ages. Massive stars may explode as supernovae, scattering elements that later form new stars and planets. In that sense, there truly is a cosmic cycle. Matter from old stars becomes the material for new systems, including worlds where life might eventually appear. But remember something important. Our sun is not expected to explode as a supernova. It will follow a different path as it ages, expanding into a red giant before shedding its outer layers and leaving behind a dense remnant. Still, the larger idea remains powerful. The universe is full of cycles of transformation. Ancient people didn't know the physics behind stellar evolution, but they recognized the patterns of renewal in nature, day and night, seasons, growth and decay. They used those patterns as metaphors to talk about human life, consciousness, and spiritual development. So when traditions speak of rebirth or balance, they're often drawing inspiration from the same natural rhythms that govern the world around us. The sun doesn't just sustain life physically, it also became a universal symbol for illumination, both literal and intellectual. Light reveals, light nourishes, light allows life to flourish. That's why it appears so often in humanity's stories about understanding and awakening.
The sun was now fully above the horizon. Light filled the cave, and Hoodie sat quietly, absorbing everything the dragon had been explaining. But his mind was still turning.
Dragon, when you look at the universe, it feels like everything has a cycle. Stars form, burn their fuel, expand into giants, collapse into dwarfs, or transform into other states. Life and death happen even on a cosmic level. And when I think about it, it's similar to what people talk about spiritually: cycles of existence, transformation, and renewal. The difference is that a star might stay in one form for billions of years, while humans experience change much faster during our lifetimes. But something else stands out to me. We talked about how consciousness seems to come first, how a thought occurs, energy follows, and that energy allows movement and action. The same way plants absorb sunlight and convert it into usable energy, our bodies convert the energy in food into movement, thought, and life. Yet humans seem different from the rest of the living world. Animals and insects behave almost like they're following a set program. Ants build colonies in a certain way. Bees form hives with strict roles. Lions hunt in coordinated groups. Even insects that fly into car windshields or lights at night seem stuck following instinct rather than adapting their behavior. But humans, we can learn, change habits, question patterns, and even reprogram how we think. So does that mean our real difference from other species comes from our ability to change our behavior through awareness and learning? So what if consciousness is actually the deeper force behind everything? What if the sun is simply one part of a larger system that sustains life, while consciousness allows us to understand and interact with it? And what about meditation? People say meditation helps the body restore itself, almost like sleep does. When we sleep, our bodies repair tissues, regulate hormones, and restore energy. But some traditions say deep meditation can create a similar restorative effect while we're awake. Is meditation just helping the brain enter a state where it can reset and recharge itself?
You're asking profound questions, Hoodie. Let's begin with consciousness. Scientists and philosophers still debate what consciousness truly is. We know the brain produces patterns of electrical and chemical activity that correspond with thoughts, emotions, and awareness. But the deeper nature of subjective experience, why we feel aware at all, is still one of the biggest mysteries in science. What we do know is that human consciousness allows remarkable flexibility. It enables imagination, long-term planning, cultural learning, and the ability to reshape our environment in ways no other species has done. That ability doesn't mean humans are separate from nature. In fact, we are deeply connected to it. Our bodies depend on the sun's energy through food chains and ecological cycles. The sun powers photosynthesis. Plants transform sunlight into chemical energy. Animals eat plants, and humans depend on those same energy pathways. So the sun truly is essential for life on this planet. Meditation and energy. Now about meditation. Meditation does not literally recharge the body the way plugging a battery into electricity would. But research shows that meditation can significantly influence the nervous system. During deep meditation, heart rate slows, stress hormones decrease, brain waves shift toward calmer patterns, the body enters a restorative state. This state can support healing, improve focus, and reduce mental fatigue. In a sense, meditation allows the mind to step out of constant stimulation. That quiet state helps the brain regulate itself, similar to what happens during certain stages of sleep. The balance between sun and mind. The sun sustains our physical bodies. Consciousness allows us to understand, explore, and transform the world around us. One provides the energy for life. The other allows life to reflect upon itself. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans is this. We are beings made of the same elements as stars, powered by sunlight, yet capable of questioning the universe that created us.